Hello everyone, this is Ashraful and I am a fine art photographer based in Dhaka. And in this masterclass, I am about to walk you through the process of creating a cinemagraph from start to finish. Cinemagraphs are comparatively new media, but definitely amazing, and they have that wow factor about them. But first, let me give you a brief idea about what a cinematograph is. A cinematograph is usually a still photo where parts of the image are moving on an endless loop. Most part of the image remains completely still, where a small repeated movement creates that beautiful illusion of a living photo. Just like a successful photograph, having a plan for your cinematograph can go a long way. And I personally think that when I plan things out, it really saves the time and really make that cinematograph more successful. Personally, I would start with a mood board. And a mood board is basically a collection of images to give you some inspiration and ideas. And to create a mood board, you can scroll through Pinterest, Instagram, and save the images with the elements you could use. For example, if I want to create a Harry Potter themed cinematograph, I would go to Pinterest and scroll through the images and save the images with the elements I could use. This is a great way to learn about the props and give you a good idea. Next, I would suggest you to create a sketch of the scene you are going to shoot. This will definitely save the time and give you a nice direction. And you don't really have to be very good at drawing. Just a rough sketch of all the details you can think of will work. Of course, you can create a cinematograph spontaneously, but when we are going to create a cinematograph more complex with levitation and composites, it's better to plan everything in advance. The next thing you need to think of is the kind of movements you are going to use. Ideally, when creating a cinematograph, you need to select a subject in the scene where the majority of the image remains completely still with a little bit of isolated movement. This could be a flowing stream of water, a wisp of hair blowing in the wind, but remember, too much movement gives you an impression of a repeating video instead of a still photo infused with a small movement. Next, I suggest you to think very carefully about the movements you are going to select. Since we will be creating from videos, and typically when creating cinematograph, you should select some isolated movements. Avoid having elements in your scene you want to be completely still, overlapping with the elements you want to be moving. So let's explain what it actually means. Suppose I have a subject right in front of the ocean and I want the ocean waves coming in and out in the background while my subject remains completely still. No problem, except if my subject moves too much, it will overlap with the moving ocean waves. Later on in the post, if I try to create a cinematograph, this will create a big problem. So you need to make sure that the still doesn't overlap with the moving. The next thing you need to think of is the kind of motion you're going to use. You want movement that will loop seamlessly. And what I mean by that, ideally the movement should be repeated endlessly to give that illusion of a living photo. And now, let's talk about the loops. And there are two types of loops you can use in your cinemagraphs. So the first loop is called the bounce loop. A bounce loop will play to the end of the video clip and then play backwards. This is a great way to make the movement look continuous with an endless repeat. But you need to have movements that will make sense for it. For a bounce loop, you can have movements like leaves dancing in the wind, fabrics flowing in the wind, something like that. But it would not work for something that moves in one direction. For example, someone driving across your frame. If you play this in a bounce loop, what will happen is it would play across the frame and then move back up, which wouldn't make any sense. So it's easy to create and achieve that endless loop, but not suitable for every kind of movement. The next one is the repeat loop. In a repeat loop, the entire clip is played to completion from start to finish and then played again from the beginning. The clip is repeated endlessly and the first frame of the clip needs to be the exactly same as the last frame. This kind of loop works great for something that enters and exits the frame completely and something that has a definitive start and end. So now Let's talk about the gears and camera settings. Since we will be creating cinemagraphs from videos, definitely we are going to need a camera that can shoot videos. And this could be anything, a DSLR, a mirrorless, or even a smartphone. As long as it can shoot videos for 10 to 30 seconds, it's perfect. Higher end cameras will definitely give you better results, but to start off, any camera will do. And the next important thing you need is a tripod. During shooting time, your camera needs to be absolutely still without any shake. Shaky footage means there will be less chance to create a cinematograph. You could use any kind of tripod, but the sturdier is the better. Especially if you are shooting outside, the wind can move the tripod. So make sure whatever you're using, it keeps the camera absolutely still. Also, you need to make sure that you get the right exposure, white balance in your camera. Because just like JPEGs, there won't be much to do in post with videos. So if you don't have good footages to work with, it will be very hard to create a good cinematograph. Remember, a good cinematograph is first and foremost a good photograph. Now that we know everything, let's get into shooting. So this is where I'll be shooting today, and for my main light source I'm using a big window, and to add some depth and add some backlight I'm using a LED continuous light. This one is by Yongnuo and nothing fancy, just to add some definition, and I think it will also make the teeth stream look more visible. Make sure there won't be any drastic change in the light while shooting. This will disrupt the continuity. Also, if you are doing multiple composites, this might cause a problem in the post. I have set my composition according to my sketch. This is why I think sketching and brainstorming really come very handy. This literally took me 5 minutes to set the whole thing up. Here I have used few wine glasses and cup to elevate the teacups. I want sort of like a tea fountain, and we could use fishing wires or clamps to hold them. But since we are shooting a video and for cinematograph, we need the objects to stay absolutely still without any movement. So we need something firm to hold them while we pour down the tea on the cups. And the reason to use these glasses is that I can see these edges of the cups, and later in post, I can easily clone stamp this part and make the cup levitate. I'm shooting at 4K 30 FPS on a Nikon D850, and I'm using a Nikon 50mm f1.8G lens. Make sure you use the best video options in your camera to get the highest possible quality. And I'm shooting with a low ISO at f2.8 with an exposure of 1/160th second. A lower ISO will give less noise and great quality footage to edit in post. Another thing to consider is the blank shot. A blank shot is the shot where you remove everything from the frame and only take images of the plain background for composite. One problem here is, after I pour down the tea, the table surface will be completely wet, and I want it to look dry in the cinematograph. So either we can take the blank shot before or after the shoot. And for this shoot, I think I'll take the blank shot after. I'll remove everything and wait and make the surface dry, and then I'll take the blank shot. And I'm keeping the background very simple, just a plain white wall. And I'm shooting vertically. This is just a personal preference. I really like vertical compositions. And also I think that it's easier to composite things. If I can get all the streams in one shot, that will be amazing, but I don't think it will happen. So for now, I'll try to get everything part by part. And now, take two, the second stream. I really hope we got that. Next, I'm going to take some shots of the pocket watches. And I'm just going to place them here and there just to add some depth. And to get the edge of this cup, all I'm going to do, very carefully holding it in its place, just removing the cup underneath. And we just need this part to add on our post. Now that we are done with our shots, I'm going to remove all the objects and going to take a blank shot. Make sure your camera focus is in manual mode so that the focus doesn't shift. I'm just going to dry this up with the help of a paper towel. Once it's dry, we're going to take some extra shots and some blank shots. And I'm just going to move my camera anti-clockwise and taking some extra shots of the frames so later we can composite it with our main shot. So now we are in Photoshop, and just like the shoot, I'm going to process the cinemagraph step by step. So I'm opening the main footage now. At first, I'm going to make a still frame of the beginning of the footage. This is going to be our base image. And to do that, I'm going to press Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E on Windows or Command Option Shift and E on a Mac. And I'm moving this still frame on top of the layers and dragging it to the beginning of my footage. So for now, I'm hiding it and going to work on only the footage. Now let's cut the part for our cinemagraph. And from this footage layer, let's see where we can find a nice flowy stream. I'm just trimming it down. So usually it's hard to get movements like this in one take. So if it doesn't work at first, don't feel bad. Just keep trying. Trust me, I fail a lot. And usually I do few test shots before the final one. We're just trying to make it as seamless as possible. And I'm going to trim it down. And remember the duration of the clip, because we have to match it with our second clip. And I'm trimming down the still file layer also to match it with our footage. Next, I'm going to do the same for the second stream. And for that, first I'm going to duplicate the footage layer and finding the spot where I think the stream looks good. So to duplicate the layer, we're selecting it and pressing Command J on a Mac or Ctrl J on Windows. So since the length of this footage is shorter than our first one, so now we need to match the first one with this. So now the total length of our video duration is almost 2 seconds. So now we need to bring back the first stream, and we only want this stream of tea from the second footage. So what we have to do, we need to hide the entire layer and bring back only this stream. And to do that, I'm going to add a layer mask. So if I go to this layer mask option, right down here in Photoshop, and click it, it will create a layer mask. And by default, it's white. That means whatever is in this layer is visible. So to hide it, we have to paint it with black. And we can do it by pressing Command I on a Mac or Control I on Windows. This will invert white and fill the layer mask with black. And now we need to bring back only the stream. And to do that, I'm going to paint white over this part. So first, I'm selecting the brush tool by pressing B, and I'm selecting a soft round brush, and the opacity should be 100% for now. So while selecting the foreground color white and making sure that my layer mask is selected, I'm just going to paint over the part which I want to bring back. Now let's take a look how it looks. Okay, it doesn't look too bad. For now, I'm okay with it, and I think we can use this as our demonstration. So now I'm making the still photo layer visible, and I'm going to the beginning of the timeline. For now, we just need to make the streams visible. So just like before, I'm selecting our still image layer, and we can just rename it. So I'm adding a layer mask, and this time I want to bring back only the streams. That means I need to remove these parts from my still image layer. And now we have to do the exact opposite what we did with the footages. So this time I'm keeping the layer mask white, and I'm selecting the brush tool and making sure that my foreground color is black. So I'm just very carefully brushing over the parts which I want to make visible. Now let's get rid of these glasses. I'm going to open the footage with my blank shot. And I'm going to grab a screen from this and paste it on my main footage. And I'm going to hide it. I'm going to add a layer mask and pressing Command I to invert the white layer mask to black. So we are done with it now, but as you can see, there is a shift of exposure over here, and we can quickly fix it by adding an adjustment layer. To do that, I'm just making sure that my layer is selected, and I'm going to the adjustment layers panel, and from there I'm selecting curves. And I want to make sure that whatever changes I make in this adjustment layer, it's going to affect only this layer. So while selecting this adjustment layer, I'm pressing Command Option G or Control Alt G, and this will clip the layer mask with the layer I want to work on. So I'm just going to the midtone sections and just increasing it a little bit. I think that looks good. And now we need to work on this part of the third cup. Remember the shot we took holding this cup? We're going to open the footage and we're going to the part where we took a frame of the underneath of the cup. We're going to copy and paste it. Now it looks cool, but there are like few things that here we can see the edge of the glass. So we need to clean this up, and we can just use clone stamp tool. So now let's make the loop. And for this one, we're going to use the repeat loop. Let's play this. And I want to make sure that the loop playback is selected. You can select it from this little gear over here. And make sure that the loop playback is selected. This is the main problem. When it ends, there's a jump of frame and lag of motion. Our main goal is to make sure that the first frame is exactly the same as the last frame. We need to trim the beginning of the footage a little bit. We will explain this soon. Here. Okay. Next, I'm going to duplicate this video group. I'm just simply clicking it and dragging it to the create a new layer. And this will create a duplicate video group. We are going to click on the bottom video layer and drag it all the way to the right until it snaps, so that the end of this footage marks the beginning of this footage. Now we need to blend these layers together. Now in the beginning we cut off the beginning of the clip, and here's why. We are going to go down to this video clip and we're going to bring back the information we had at the beginning. So I'm going to click here and drag to the left, and it will bring back the original footage. What I have now is the beginning of my footage here is now the exact same place as this point in my footage here. Now I will trim down the clip as I don't need this extra part. Let's bring it in from the right to the left. Now we need to make sure that the top clip is completely invisible by the time it goes to the end. We need to make the top clip fade out by the time it reaches to the end, and it will show the footage underneath, which is the beginning frame of our clip. And we can do this very easily by going over here. First, I'm selecting the top layer and I'm going to this drop down menu, video group 1 copy. And here you can see that there are 4 options, but to fade out, we need to work with the opacity and we need to add a keyframe. So click on opacity And if you click on this stopwatch, it will enable an opacity keyframe. As you can see, the yellow keyframe is activated. And now make sure that the opacity of this layer here is 100%. Let's get to the end of this clip. I'm adding another opacity keyframe, and this time while selecting this top layer, I'm going to make the opacity 0. So now if we play this, you can see that by the time it reaches to the end, it just gradually fades out, and the layer underneath, which is the exact same as the beginning of this layer, shows up. And that's it. That's how you can create that endless loop. Now, I know it's a bit complex to understand, and you really need to practice to understand it well. So we have already made the composite with our steel frame, so we don't need to do it again here. But you can also create the loop first and then composite the steel frame. It will work the same way. Now we are just going to composite some pocket watches and do some minor changes and cleanups and do a color grade, and our cinematograph will be done. Now, if I want to color grade the cinematograph, we can do it easily using these adjustment layers. So once you are happy with your composition and the color grading and everything, we can save this as a video file. And to save it for your social media, first you need to make sure that it's the right size. So I'm going to image size, and I'm going to reduce it down to 1080 pixel wide. That's the standard for Instagram. And next, we're going to File, Export, Render Video. And this time for Instagram or any social media, instead of QuickTime, we're going to select the format as H264 and make sure that the preset is high quality. And that's it. Click Render. And this will save your cinematograph as a video file, which you can share on your social media. Thank you so much for joining in and watching this tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it and it gave you some inspiration to create your own magical cinemagraphs. Okay. So thank you everyone for watching it, and I really hope that it gave you some ideas and really helped you to understand how actually a cinemagraph works. And I hope it will inspire you to create your own magical cinemagraphs. So yeah, let's see if we can take some questions now. Let's start with, okay, there are some questions. So Joel said, where do you get your inspiration from? Do you take images and then create them into cinemagraphs, or do you have the cinematograph in mind first? Okay, so my inspiration comes from mostly fantasy world, illustrations, movies like Harry Potter, Alice in Wonderland. I'm a big fan of fairy tales and magical stories. So I think cinemagraphs really give me that opportunity to explore that magical realm. And really it kind of, I really love the surrealism and those ideas. So those are the very first inspiration when it comes to cinematograph for me. And sometimes I do take images first, and I think that okay, it could look good in a cinematograph, or there's some element I can add later as a cinematograph. And sometimes it happens that I only have the idea for cinematograph only, and I shoot the cinematograph first before shooting the still image. So it's kind of, I would say it's both. It totally depends on the kind of mood I'm going for or the kind of story I'm going for. So yeah, that's what I'll say. Second one is, Emily asked, how long would you say cinemagraphs take you on average from start to finish? Well, for me, the most part that takes time is the coming up with a concept and really, sketching out the plans and thinking about the compositions and uh, all the other stuffs like how I will execute it. That's the planning part is the most time-consuming part for me. And once I have that clear idea, I know what to do with my idea and how to shoot it, what kind of lighting I am going to use, what kind of props I'm going to use. So then the shooting actually doesn't take much time. So I would say for a normal cinematograph, I would take about 2 to 3 days, like 2 or 3 days just to conceptualize and to get the ideas. And then the shooting time might take from about 30 minutes to 1 hour. And for the editing part, it might take about one day, I would say, because sometimes what happens that, I like to take time, and oftentimes it happens that at first try, so many things can go wrong, and I don't get the shot I want. So sometimes it happens that I go back and forth, and yeah, it takes some time to, finally making that final piece. So I would say in general, it takes about 3-4 days to create a cinematograph from start to finish. Okay. So next question, what's the most difficult shot you have taken? Okay. I think the most difficult one I have taken, it was one with the, I think you can see it on my Instagram. There was one cinematograph with where it was also with Alice in Wonderland theme, and also it was with tea stream flowing down something like that. But instead of flowing down the tree, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to create something that elevate and levitate the tea stream upwards instead of downward. So that was pretty challenging, that how I will make the tea stream go upward, how I'll make the tea flow go upward. So that was pretty challenging. I had to kind of try different settings, try different things to get that idea going and to execute that idea. So yeah, at the end, it kind of worked out. And I also have a behind the scene and story about that particular shoot on my Instagram as a story. So if anyone interested, they can check it out. Okay. Have you tried to use any other software to do this other than Adobe? Yes, there's another software. It's very easy to do it. with that. It's called Flixel Cinemagraph Pro, and it's really like basically what we did today. The software does it for you. It has these auto settings for repeat loop, bounce loop. You just upload your footage and select the parts where you want the motion to be, and then the app will do its thing. But the thing is that it's a paid app, and it's you need to really pay. I think it's about 200 USD right now, and yeah, so Photoshop is something that you have to work hard, but then again, the Flixel one is will do the work for you, but it's not free. So another thing also, I haven't tried it, but I've seen people creating Cinematograph with Adobe Premiere Pro. So if anyone interested, they can also use that one too. But I think there are some mobile apps also available. I have never used it, but for my cinemagraphs, I have used only Flixel and Photoshop. Okay, let's see. Okay, how to add two loops. Okay, so for example, if you are working it in Photoshop, and when you are starting out, I would recommend you to make it very simple, and adding two loops or more than one loop is a bit advanced level. So if you try to do it at first, it might confuse you. So but the technique is kind of the same. What you'll do, you'll create the first loop and you'll then create the second loop the same way. And then what you have to do, you need to make sure that the length of the first loop is exactly the same as the second loop. So when you combine them in all together in Photoshop, it doesn't overlap with one another. So that's the key thing. You have to make sure that the two loop has this exact same time frame and start and end at the same point, so that at the same timeline, so that one doesn't overlap with another. So that's the key thing you need to do. Like once you make sure that okay, the two loops have the exact same time frame, then you just paste them one over another and mask out just the same way we did. We used a layer mask, and just the same way we layer mask the part where you want the second loop or first loop motion to be visible, and then you just go to Photoshop and file, save, export the file as a video. Okay, magical, is there a book to follow all those steps? I don't have any book right now, but I will very soon I will publish this on my YouTube channel, and which the link you'll find that on my Instagram. And also I will in future I will definitely create more tutorials about cinematograph on my YouTube channel, so you can also learn from there too. How long did it take you to learn to do this? Okay, so it took me about, I think, 6 to 7 months. Like I started very simple. I started doing simple cinemagraphs, and I kind of did those things for like 5 to 6 months, and then I gradually I started adding these magical elements and elements like levitation and stuff. So yeah, it took a bit time, and I'm still learning. I'm still looking for new ideas, trying to see how I can add more magic to my cinemagraphs. So yeah, it's still a learning process, and yeah, it definitely takes time. And the more time you put into it, the more you'll learn. Okay, every single image you used is a still from a video, isn't it? You're not taking any other stills. I love this, Brina. Thank you so much. Yes, the reason for this, I used a still from a video because that way the quality and the lighting, the overall, colors and everything will match with the main footage. Because what happens that usually when you shoot using without the video option, like the photo option, the quality will be much better than the video. So you kind of need to match the two qualities. but once you take on the still from the video, it will automatically match with your main footage. So there won't be any shift of lighting or colors or any kind of thing. So it's always better to take a still from the video and then combine it with your main footage. Okay, how did you do the one on your Instagram with the teapot pouring tea and moving through the frame? It's amazing. Okay, so that was a bit more advanced one, and I used actually Adobe After Effects for that because of that, moving part and all, flying teapot and etc. So yeah, you can create in Photoshop like some smaller portions, but Photoshop doesn't have that sort of easy to do like the kind of things you can do in After Effects you can't really do in Photoshop. It takes a lot of time and a lot of time and all that thing. So I did those things in After Effects, and Photoshop is actually very good for this kind of like tea streams or flowing wind, petals flowing in the wind, book pages flying in the wind, something like that. So more simpler motions are very good to do in Photoshop, but once you are going to try advanced thing, you will need more advanced software for like After Effects or other things for this kind of photo cinematograph. Okay, let's see. Okay, how to price cinemagraph? I don't think I think do we have much time left? But it totally up. Okay. Uh, it totally depends on your photography style and how you actually price your work. And cinemagraphs are definitely, when you're creating a cinematograph, it takes a much more labor and time. So it will definitely be a bit more than your usual photography price. So, but at the end, it's totally up to you. You have to, price everything according to your time, according to how much work you put into it. So there's no like exact exact price, price meter for it. But yeah, I would suggest you to just, for example, you can look into the cinematograph stock agencies. So from their price list, you will get an idea that how we actually, usually price a cinematograph. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm really, really sorry. I would love to take more questions, but we are running out of time. So whoever, like if I didn't answer your question, just feel free to always reach out to on my Instagram, on my YouTube, or wherever you can find me. I would love to answer your questions. And I think it's time to wrap up now. I really, really hope you enjoyed this session. And thank you so much, the Photography Show, for having me, for giving me this opportunity to share my work with the people. So thank you so much. Everyone have a great day, and bye.